Welcome to Sleepless in St. Canard, where the Stodder replaces REM cycles. I'm Kitty.
And I'm Ange.
We haven't slept
in 30 years.
This is a podcast about the 90s Disney cartoon Darkwing Duck, where we unfortunately have to acknowledge episodes like the one we discussed today. An episode that belonged right in the dumpster outside Hamburger Hippo. A villain who was a one-shot who got one episode too many. What episode are we talking about, Ange? Because I already feel my soul leaving my body.
Getting antsy!
So before we dive into this dumpster, why don't you give the folks some updates, my friend?
Okay, yes. So I have DuckTales art book related updates. In our last episode, I mentioned the DuckTales art book, and I said that they did a live Twitch Q&A, and I was hoping the recording would go up somewhere, and it did go up. I was not completely correct. I said possibly the Disney TVA YouTube channel. This is incorrect. The Q&A went up a few days ago, and you can find it on YouTube at Gallery Nucleus. They have their own.
Oh, so it's like the official. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's an official one. So I'll put a direct link to the panel in the links for this episode. But if you also just want to go and find it yourself, pretty much all you have to do is go to YouTube and type in Gallery Nucleus and DuckTales panel, and it'll pop up immediately. It was a lot of fun. It was about an hour and 30 minutes long. I watched it. They had Frank Angonis, of course, Matt Youngberg. They had a whole bunch of people that worked on the show, and it was very delightful. A lot of positive energy and them recounting, funny stories and such things like that. So yeah, I highly recommend it. If you missed out on the original Q&A, you can now go see it.
It is preserved forever on YouTube. Get to it in your own time. I have not watched it, but I did get the Ange bullet points, and it was delightful. Yeah, and it seems like a pretty neat book. It seems very big. I did not buy it, but I know several people who have. And, I request specifically for people to send me Gladstone stuff. I haven't seen anything. But that's fine. It's fine. We're just talking about betrayals today. So this is on brand. So yeah, and then there's that, and then there's been a whole bunch of new covers and stuff for the Darkwing comic that's pending. I mean, at this point, it's like less than a month away, isn't it?
January 4th. So as of recording it, it's December 1st. By the time this episode goes up, it will be approximately or close to a month away.
It's looking pretty promising.
Mm-hmm.
Not gonna lie. Yeah. Lots of different covers, and even just like the little blurbs that you've been sharing with me, and have been all seem like they're trending in the right direction.
Yeah, so we know at least what two of the issues are about, because they have the first issue with Megavolt, and then they revealed the second issue is going to be a Quackerjack-related escapade, which makes me wonder if the next one is one of the other Fearsome Five. I wonder if it's leading up to a Fearsome Five reveal. But I know that the main story has Fowl, like the title of the arc has Fowl in it, so who knows where it's going to go.
Yeah, and I mean, it would make sense to but it also, I feel like it would do the characters justice themselves to have each, like, one issue dedicated to one villain, rather than just kind of just being like, here they all are, you know who they are. It's like, reintroduce them. Like, basically a proverbial cup of coffee. How you been doing, Megavolt? What have you been doing since the last time we saw you? Oh, you stole more light bulbs. Why are we not surprised? Yeah. But yeah, it's looking pretty promising.
Yeah.
Except for some of the alternate covers, but we won't go into that because I'm a bit of a snob. As I'm sure y'all know, judging by my thoughts on the comics in general.
Well, I have to say, talking to other people, I've noticed that people who are diehard fans or just, regular fans who kept up with Darkwing Duck don't seem super wild about the covers. And people who aren't super familiar with Darkwing seem to like the covers, and I think it's just because they're not accurate to his design. They're very stylized.
Mm-hmm.
So people who probably, don't obsessively memorize Darkwing Duck model sheets like I do.
I mean, and people who probably don't listen to Darkwing Duck podcasts. So I don't
Yeah.
know if we have any of you here. I'm just gonna say one thing. Just look for the issue 2 with the noodle arms, and you'll know what I'm talking about. I feel like you could probably even just Google Darkwing Duck noodle arms, and it would show up. That's all. I'm gonna just. That's the last I'll say about it.
Yes, the inside art looks pretty clean though, so we'll see.
Yes, a preview panel somewhere of like the Thunderquack, like looks like in mid crash, and it looks spectacular. So the inside art looks pretty incredible. So.
Yes, so the final verdict will come in when the comic drops, and then we can do a little review where I will probably read it to you like last time. And
as a bedtime story. I'll lay in bed, all tucked in, nestled in, hugging my quackerware, and you can read me a bedtime story.
And I saw that the writer did an interview, and she said that her favorite character is Morgana, and we're going to see a lot of her, and I'm very excited.
Yes, you can't see me, but I'm wringing my hands right now. Rubbing my palms together. Let's do this.
On to the subject of not so favorite.
Let's talk about this stuff instead.
I see you're dragging this. Wonderful. You're dragging this out. You're trying to delay the pain of this episode that we're about to discuss.
So I did kind of think to myself that maybe I should watch this one and kind of remember as I, like what my memory was of this episode, like I did with the Derek Blunt one. Then I just was like, no, it's gonna be bad. I'm not even gonna. And you know what? I was not wrong. So if you would, I'm gonna say right now. So Disney Plus, what you want to do instead of watching this episode is watch the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special because it was delightful.
Yeah.
And we can end the podcast right here.
We're going to do this. Let's rip the Band-Aid off.
All right. So it's season 1, episode 2. It's getting antsy. And the blurb is Darkwing and Goslin discover Dr. Lilliput's hideout. They spelled his name wrong, which is what he deserves.
That's not even an accurate description, but maybe they couldn't sit through it either, so. Yeah,
they're just like, whatever, there's ants. Get on with it. But for the content of this episode, it does have a pretty neat opening. It's like an aerial shot of St. Canard. And Darkwing is narrating his accomplishments of the evening in like Batman style, chilling out with a gargoyle.
6 burglars, 9 car thieves, 21 muggers, 11 kidnappers, 5 international terrorists, and a voodoo king with an army of zombies. Boy, for such a slow night, I sure am pooped.
And just right out the bat, oof. He looks awful in this episode.
Yeah, the animation is very off-model, the style.
Yeah, it's super awkward. It looks like all the really weird art that they put on merch. Like, if you, 5,000 awkward Darkwing shirts, they all probably came from this episode. And I know that it's episode 2 on Disney Plus, but I feel like it has to be early in the production order. Because I don't think that I've ever seen an episode that looked this ugly. Really wonky looking.
I don't know which studio did this one. I'd have to look it up.
It was drawn by ants.
It was drawn by the ants.
They needed 5 ants per paintbrush. But anyway, so yeah, Darkwing looks really weird. And Launchpad, they're up on this building, and Launchpad just is there suddenly and starts talking about how hungry he is. And then Darkwing begrudgingly agrees to allow the man to eat a meal. As a building vanishes behind him, and then I was like, oh, of course he's not. I'm just gonna say my salt level going into this episode was enough that you could float. It was just like the Dead Sea. I was a personification of the Dead Sea. I didn't even take very good notes. But I was like, oh, and then he's just gonna walk away and nobody's even gonna notice. But he does. He comes back and he's like, wait, wasn't there well, whatever, and he walks off. It was kind of like ho ho. But of course, where do they go for dinner? The best part of the episode, the highlight of every episode, except for the Herb Buttlefoot stuff, is Hamburger Hippo, because I love
Hamburger Hippo.
I love it. I love this chain so much, and it's just kind of like it makes you wonder, like so this is the 90s, and you know that Hamburger Hippo probably got like most of the chain got shut down for like health code violations, and then there's just like these weird abandoned hippos all over the place. Like you're driving down the interstate, and then all of a sudden there's an abandoned hippo that they tried to turn into a bank or something. And that's where my brain goes. It disassociates into the what the buildings are repurposed as instead of focusing on the rest of this episode. So anyway, we go to Hamburger Hippo. The guy working there also has a tiny hippo hat, which is adorable. And he thinks that Darkwing is a robber, and it's just basically like, oh yeah, just take all the money.
Don't shoot, the cash is in the register.
Don't let the mask fool you. I am Darkwing Duck, protector of the innocent, defender of...
You're not a robber.
Correct, I am not a robber.
You're just some weirdo in a mask.
Correct, I am just some weirdo in a mask. Hey!
You gonna order?
But I'm...
I'll have 2 cheese food product burgers with fries, 1 hippo shake, and an apple-flavored pie substitute. How about you, DW?
A no sidekick, perhaps?
Funny. And Launchpad orders a concerningly self-aware variety of blatantly not real food. Like, it's every other thing he says is like artificial, or like it's just a really weird... Kids fast food is bad for you. I was like, well, then don't put it in a giant hippo, okay? Because it's gonna make us want it 30 years later. He orders a lot of food, and it's handed over instantly. Like, he gets the words out, and a bag is handed to him,
rotting behind the counter, and he just picked it up.
I mean, like, we saw the fast food slave like flipping the burgers and stuff. So, and I mean, they were the only ones there, so maybe Hamburger Hippo was already in the decline of capitalism. But I don't know. So he gets his food, and then instantly leaves Darkwing with the bill, and then he says that he has to take off his lucky scarf to eat, which is never been mentioned before nor after, I think.
No.
Because we've definitely seen Launchpad eat pretty much an entire Nathan's hot dog eating contest of things in his quote-unquote lucky scarf. Also, is the lucky scarf the only thing that keeps Launchpad alive?
Well,
I wouldn't put it past him.
I mean, the scarf was off for a while, and he lived, so hard to say.
But this episode did happen to him. How lucky was he, really? Yeah, so he has to take his lucky scarf off to eat, and he drapes it over one of the tooth stools next to him, because Hamburger Hippo is a themed restaurant, and it is amazing. And then I guess they eat, or he eats, because the next thing we see is them driving around the city in the Ratcatcher as Darkwing starts dreaming aloud about his bed, which is probably the most relatable thing in this show. But of course, Launchpad has forgotten his lucky scarf behind, so they have to zip back to the restaurant, but dun dun dun, the building is gone.
A very weird imprint in the ground.
Yes, literally an imprint of where a majestic hippo once sat. And Launchpad assumes that bad sales closed it, but Darkwing says that it is a crime. And Launchpad then says, I'll say this was my favorite place. There's a lot of like womp womp womps in this one. So as they're lamenting the fact that this restaurant is gone, the fast food worker, who I was immediately like, oh, this guy's probably dead, but he wasn't. He comes up, he's still got his little hat, which is great. His hat actually reminds me, little segue here. Do you know the I think they probably sell them outside of Disney parks now, but like at Disney parks you could buy the Goofy hat with the teeth hanging down from the bill.
Okay, yes.
That's what the Hamburger Hippo hat kind of looks like. Or the kind-hearted and gentle souls who don't want to watch this monstrosity. Oh yeah, so he's wearing his little Hamburger Hippo hat, and he tells them the building just vanished. And when asked about who did it, he throws himself into a dumpster. Basically. rather than answer them, and that's literally where the rest of the episode belongs. And Darkwing kind of jumps on the dumpster and talks not really to him, but just to the world in general. And as he's done, like, narrating his day or whatever, he just slams the dumpster shut on this man. He just locks him in the dumpster. And that seems a little unfair.
Classic Darkwing.
Classic. And also classic Darkwing mode also proclaims how he'll solve the mystery and he'll never miss a clue as a giant cluster of buildings vanish behind him, which he, of course, does not notice.
A giant flag situation.
Exactly. Only, again, like, I'm sure this episode isn't that bad, but this episode, just like, if I ever do something truly terrible where I need to be in prison, just tie me to a chair and make me watch this episode over and over and over again, and it'll be more effective than any torture in the world.
So what you're saying is when your birthday rolls around, I can send you stuff related to this episode in the mail.
You can send me Lilliputs, but I will not have the good grace to keep them like you do. I will immediately just throw them away. Ange's birthday was recently, and myself and Nem, who was one of our guests on the podcast, she was on the Family Fandom Feud episode. We sent her a picture. There's a picture that she truly hates of Negative, so we had it printed on a mug and sent it to her. So that's fine. You can send me Lilliputs. I will not even open the box. I'll just throw it away. But yeah, so as Darkwing is not noticing that buildings are being vanished, Launchpad is also not noticing that buildings are vanishing because he is digging through the sidecar of the Ratcatcher, trying to find the extra burger he bought, and it seems like he throws it out of the sidecar in his mad search for it, and it seemingly gets up and walks away, but is not, because it's being carried by ants. And Darkwing calls him a booby, because why not?
He's a booby.
He is a booby. And Launchpad tries to physically get his burger back, his boiga, back from the ants. And the ants just kind of hand him his ass. He gets dragged all around. He gets slammed on the ground. And Darkwing tells him not to feel bad because ants are hella strong. And Launchpad remains furious with the natural world and pouts about it.
To be fair, I'd also be mad if ants stole my burger.
Especially if you think that your favorite food chain has just closed down. It was your one saving grace. It's like the people who like wait for the McDonald's McRib like all year long, and then some ants take it.
The Szechuan sauce.
The BTS craze. All those kinds of things.
There's a BTS craze at McDonald's?
Well, there was. Because, there was like a snippet of, I think it was just during the pandemic. I hope it was just during the pandemic. Or it was like celebrities or whoever would make their McDonald's meal. And the BTS guys had like a special dipping sauce or something like that.
Why would they did McDonald's not learn their lesson after Rick and Morty?
You are expecting capitalism to learn lessons other than money is good?
That's fair. That's true.
R.I.P. this one particular hamburger hippo. And then I guess Lilliput shows up because in my notes it just says this fucking guy.
I can fill you in. It's because the ants carry the burger over to Lilliput and then he yells at them because I guess he wanted more buildings and they stopped for a hamburger. So he throws a little fit.
What are you trying to do? Lead Darkwing Duck right to me? Oh. I invented this headgear so I could talk to you. But do you listen? No. All you ever do is just munch, 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 munch. Of course you can keep your burger. Onto the truck. Double time. Now let's hope that Darkwing Ducky doesn't pick up our trail, because we've got lots of shopping to do.
Oh, I wrote, this guy is screaming at ants, and his eyes are soulless. He should crash his truck and get out of my life.
You really hate him.
He zaps shit, and to make up for his Napoleon complex. And his aunts wish he was dead.
He was hot and cold with those ants. He'd yell at them and treat them like, minions, and then he'd apologize and be like, I'm so sorry, you little guys. You're working as hard as you can.
Yeah, he was very gaslight gatekeep girl boss. Except for the girl boss part. He was only an ant boss.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's doing an impression of somebody, but I just did not care to try to figure it out. The sooner I could get through this episode, the better.
It made me think of like a constipated Roger Rabbit, is the only way I could describe it.
He was very Roger Rabbit. I did think that at some point, which is a crime because I love Roger Rabbit, but I do not love Lilliput. He's just, ugh. And he's got like a singular buck tooth in the center of his mouth. Not two. Like Crackerjack has like normal, like you have two front teeth. Lilliput is an abomination that just has one central front tooth that is buck. There was also a lot of teeth in this episode. Darkwing at one point had a really nasty mouth full of teeth. I didn't appreciate this episode. So continuing on, his aunts wish he was dead. Launchpad and Darkwing finally get to go home and are passed out in the living room, snoring the next morning, still in costume. And Goslin decides to play golf, like through the house. The golf ball lands on Drake's mouth. I think it does.
His lips.
Where she puts it there. It's right on his puckered up lips. And she's going to play it where it lands. And Honker is playing caddy. He should know better. He should object. But no, he's just playing caddy. And she's about to smack and she, like, it's just so unsettling because she's so off model. Like, she's, like, really small, and then she's really big, and then she's really... Anyway. So she's about to smack the golf ball off his face.
Have I ever told you the story of the little girl, the golf club, and the firing squad? Now, please, I just want a little sleep.
Did you forget?
I never forget. But, just out of curiosity, which of the many things I haven't forgotten are you referring to?
The one where you take me and Honker to Goonie Golf.
I was afraid it was that one. Goslin.
You're not trying to weasel out of this one, are you?
Actually, yes.
Okay, fine.
It's just that I'm so tired.
No, it's fine. We'll just play inside today.
That might be the funniest line in the whole episode.
It's because he's saying it with the golf ball still on his lips. So he's kind of like growling it, which is pretty funny, but it's also like he's threatening to murder his child. But regardless. So he says that to her, and he tries to go back to sleep, and she reminds him that he promised to take her and Honker to Goonie Golf. And she's telling him this. She's standing on like their coffee table, and it's a weird like back angle of her, and she looks horrifying, like truly terrifying. Like, this is the first time these animators has ever tried to draw a duck. It's bad. It's just bad. This had to have been one of the early episodes because they learned how to do ducks pretty quickly. I feel like everything in this episode was just bad. So anyway, she says to Darkwing, "You're not trying to weasel your way out of this one." And he says, "Actually, yes." This part was pretty funny. The delivery of these lines, like if I closed my eyes instead of watching this episode, this delivery was very good. She's like, "You're not trying to weasel your way out of this." And he's like, "Actually, yes, I am." And he leans back, and she's like, "It's fine." And he just starts talking, and she's like, "It's fine." Like, totally. Like, no, it's fine. It's fine. And then she's just like, "Well, we'll just get to play inside today," and hits a golf ball off the fruit bowl on the table. The eternal fruit bowl on the Mallard coffee table. And the ball chews through the house like it's a machine gun, and it just like makes Swiss cheese out of Darkwing's hat. And then Goslin and Darkwing have like a stare off.
Yes.
As to who's going to win this fight. And Goslin wins, obviously. And Goslin's like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna go to Goonie Golf, Honker." And Honker just like peeks out from behind the couch like a little troll, super delighted by the fact that they're gonna go Goonie Golf. I think Hunker says like 3 things in this episode.
Yeah, he's just kind of there. I did like the Goslin and Drake / Darkwing exchanges in this because you see it only a few times, but I feel like this is commentary by maybe the writers or people who are parents where, you know, you love your kids so much that you kind of give in. And Drake, when it comes to Goslin, when she really wants something, he tends to cave.
Yeah, I don't really want to like highlight this episode as anything positive, but when she does shoot, like, you know, hit the golf ball and it chews up his hat, he's holding his hat up and it's just torn to shreds. He's like, there are days where parenting seems more difficult than being a hero or something like that. And I'm like, that's the show. That's the show in a nutshell. That's the message of Darkwing Duck. I was like, I hate that you're in this episode, but that's it. This episode, so we're going to move on. Honker is delighted by this all. He doesn't say anything, but you can tell he's very happy that they're going to go play golf. As they get to the mini golf place, Launchpad points out one of the missing monuments, and Darkwing dismisses it because, of course, he does. And then Lilliput shows back up, I can tell, because there's going to be a lot of comic guy in this episode, by the way. This asshole runs the mini golf place with his stupid eyebrows, and they pay the troll the admission and a hot dog. For admission and a hot dog, which the ants immediately start to steal. And this big-footed jackass, like, takes it away from the ants and dusts them off, and I guess gives it back to Launchpad, and then just sends them on their way. And everybody's just like, oh, well, I guess that makes sense.
Launchpad, I guess it makes sense. He'll eat anything. I mean, he ate those slime-covered fries, and slime okay, you're okay. So apparently a couple ants touching his food is not an issue.
I mean, I guess the last time the ants didn't share it with him, somebody at least reclaimed it and gave it to him, so he probably scarfed it down. Not lucky scarfed it down, but scarfed it down. And then we just find out that everybody sucks at mini golf, with one exception. But everything that Gauze tries to hit ends up in Drake's mouth somehow. She shoots like the golf ball, the entire golf club. It's just comedy. But Honker is trying to science his way to the top of the scoreboard, or just disassociating via graph paper, and I envy him. Drake tells him, like, oh, it's golf, not rocket science or whatever. And then Honker clobbers the ball, and it zooms into the atmosphere, but naturally it hits Drake on its way back down and rolls off his bill, giving the little champ a hole-in-one. And then Launchpad tells Drake to sleep it off while he commits property damage with the children. Drake is like, no, but okay, I guess. And starts to fall asleep behind one of the mini golf things. Then he just starts rolling downhill in his sleep. Okay. And then he hits the mini hamburger hippo and wakes him up, and then he finds Launchpad's tiny lucky scarf. And then he says, oh, this is a job for... And jumps behind a tree and comes back as Williams Drakespeare.
That was very random.
Like, yeah, this episode tried a lot of things. And he's like dressed like William Shakespeare with like the neck ruff and the whole thing. And he's like, oh, wrong costume. And then he jumps back behind the tree and comes back as Darkwing. And then just a disembodied hand shoots him from behind a tree. And yeah, so then we go into Honey, I Shrunk the Kids territory.
Mm-hmm.
As he immediately is like, oh, wow, everything is really big here. There's a giant snail that roars at him.
Yes.
So watch out for snails that are actually lions. He tries to pinch himself awake, but alas, the nightmare is real. And he runs to Hamburger Hippo, hide, where he is surrounded by ants. And one of the ants is just like the Hamburger Hippo employee who threw himself in the trash. So that's pretty funny.
It's the Antverse.
And,
they all have their own ant equivalents.
They do. See? Darkwing enter the Antverse. We get the, I am the terror that flaps in the night, and then he notices that he's surrounded by ants that are much bigger than him, and he says, I am the smallest, weakest thing. in the whole place, and I am also out of here, and runs off. So he runs away and tries to pull himself together and almost gets crushed by Gosalyn's giant sneaker. He tries to get her attention, but he's too small. And then Launchpad gets super creepy with his golf ball. He's like, what's a nice ball like you doing in a place like this? As Darkwing rages at them and tries to get Launchpad's attention by climbing on his ball, which then, of course, gets hit because it's a golf ball, Darkwing. And he just flies across the mini golf course and smashes into a lighthouse. And then the godless heathen Lilliput is making his new hole on the golf course, and I guess wants Darkwing as a part of his shit. And he gives all the ants race doom buggies, which I guess he just had in his pocket.
Just carries them around in his pocket for fun.
Yeah. Darkwing is trying to get back over to Launchpad by like floating around on his cape. And Launchpad thinks he's a fly and swats him, so he goes flying again. And the ants zoom up on him in their doom buggies. He makes them crash while proclaiming that size isn't important. Sure. And he pole vaults into a castle and steals a buggy and zips off. Start playing chicken with some ants and having a whole bunch of speed racer hijinks. And he even jumps off a dinosaur. But then he crashes into one of the mini buildings and like crashes his way all down, like one of those still shots where you hear the Jim Cummings being like falling down every single floor and he rolls out the front door.
I feel like a good chunk of this episode was just action scenes with Darkwing being thrown back and forth.
Yeah, literally, he gets hit every 5 seconds. There's a lot of things that happen in this episode that I'm like, what? We didn't need to do this. Like, starting from the very opening to the end. It didn't need to happen. But yeah, he gets to the bottom of this building and then just immediately starts complaining and like whining. And then some ants show up and they break into a vault on like in this mini building, which I guess this skyscraper is also a bank. So they like break in and they start stealing all this money. But what you should actually be watching instead of this episode, there's a show on Apple TV called Severance. It's actually very good. It's very cerebral. And Adam Scott is in it, Patricia Arquette. It's a very good show. And sorry, I'm just trying to protect myself here. So they steal all the money out of this tiny, very, very, very tiny vault. Darkwing disguises himself as an ant. He puts a unbent clothes hanger on his head and hitches a ride with these ants back to Lilliput's quote unquote hideout where this moron is giggling to himself. They blast the money with his shrink ray, making it big. And to his credit, though, he does see through Darkwing's disguise immediately. But to not his credit, to his detriment, to his absolute, I hate this man, he calls him Darkwing Ducky every single time.
I did not like that.
Darkwing Ducky. Every time. And he tries to squish him, but he winds up pummeled with balls instead. Darkwing gets away and tries to finds his way back to his buds, finally getting everybody's attention by squashing himself on Honger's glasses. And they get everybody on the same page that he's been shrunk in his best Chip and Dale high-pitched voice. And they head back to nature's least favorite son, who is counting his money, and Launchpad is, I guess, stoned because he thinks this creature is cute and that his little antenna things is really cute. And then the ants bring Lilliput his gun, and Launchpad golf balls him. And he summons a sea of ants, basically, that then are able to manifest physical forms and like try to fight people off. Sure. And then Darkwing gets whacked into his little helmet thing, and he dives down Lilliput's collar.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lilliput starts laughing and giggling because he's being tickled. And then he bites him?
Yes.
Like, should we leave you two alone?
Darkwing and just going full throttle.
But you know what, too? Because it's okay. So he's on Lilliput's head with like the little doodle bobs. And then he dives down Lilliput's collar, but then he like does whatever unspeakable acts, and then jumps up the other side of his collar back onto Lilliput's head, and is somehow has this magical knowledge that Lilliput's headgear lets him control / talk to the ants. Did he have that like tattooed on his ass or something? And like Darkwing was like, let me take a bite of this. Oh, the headgear.
That's the theory.
I don't know.
We're gonna go with that. That's the theory.
Unless I don't know. I don't know. Darkwing he's like, I'm gonna destroy his headgear or whatever, and then Darkwing gets smacked back down to the ground because that's Darkwing's role in this episode. And Lilliput shrinks him down to like the size of a germ, and Goslin suddenly has a brilliant idea to shake up some soda cans and wash away all the ants. And then Lilliput says that he shrunk Darkwing down to germ size. But then, of course, he starts sneezing because Darkwing is a germ. And he has the Darkwing flu, I suppose. And then Goslin gets the shrink ray and blasts Lilliput's like sneeze. And Darkwing is in it with two of the finest men that I've ever seen. They're two smiling booger men. And now they're like human size. And their name are Blob and Ray, true MVPs. And Lilliput starts to threaten them again, but Darkwing disarms him. And then that's it. That's the end of him. And then we head back to Avian Way, where Darkwing is talking about how he finally gets the rest, but it's because he's sick. And they have like the green face with the red polka dots on them. Because apparently Darkwing was contagious. Everyone is sick, including Blob and Ray.
Darkwing is one powerful germ. My goodness.
He truly is. And that's it. And there I watched it. Let's never talk about it again.
Give us a rating. Give us your rating, Kitty.
It's going to be -5 ants out of 5. There was the only Muddlefoot in this episode. Really just, I think, maybe said 2 things. So, it's bad. I just hate Lilliput so much. I hate him so much. And it just was, the animation was bad. The story was stupid. It really just felt like a crappy episode of like a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids animated show. It was not satisfying. It just makes me angry.
And that is why it was your throw it in the dumpster episode.
And that's where it belongs. It belongs in there with the Hamburger Hippo employee. We didn't even see like the buildings get back.
Yeah, they kind of forgot about that part of the plot.
It was just a hook. I didn't follow through. So what's your rating on this episode, Ange?
I don't hate it as much as you do. I give it like a 2 out of 5. To me, it's just kind of a meh. Like it's not. I don't like Lilliput either. I find him. It's his voice. And his mannerisms just annoy me. Like he feels like he's supposed to be some kind of little, I don't know, little clown man. I don't like it. So
yeah,
I don't like him. Like you said, the animation was very off. Like the characters were very off model. But other than that, like there's nothing about it in particular that I hate with a fiery passion. I did like I said, I liked a lot of the exchanges between Darkwing and Goslin specifically. I thought they were fine. So it gets a 2 for that reason. And because there's other episodes that I hate much more than this one. So.
Fair enough.
This is your Negaduck picture moment.
This is my slime okay, you're okay.
Yes.
Which I think upsets you more.
I'm pretty sure that was my throw it in the dumpster episode.
It was.
Yeah.
So this was mine. I had a lot of time to prepare for this episode and I still was not prepared. So yeah, don't like it. That's my general feeling on this. Is no sir, I don't like it. And it's like, I guess the only thing that's kind of clever about this character is that his name is Lilliput.
That's related to Gulliver's Travels, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The Lilliputians were the small people. But that's the extent of it. And the ants probably should have run the show. Like if it was this episode about like ants, and if like the ant king had like a crown that would let him control all the other ants, it would have been different. Like if you just took him out of it, I probably wouldn't hate it as much. He gets me. I don't like him. I don't like him. I want him to explode. Don't care for him. He is the anti-Herb Muddlefoot for me.
Thank you for bearing your soul for all of us today.
You're welcome. Please put a comic guy over every single last bit of this. So let's get on down here, because I feel like our randomizing wheel is filled with good episodes. Well,
isn't there only 2 or 3 episodes left?
There's 3 left, man.
Okay.
So 2 of them I think are pretty good. One of them I'm sure is good. So let's spin it and see where destiny takes us. And somehow it's going to be getting antsy again. Oh, nice. Next week we will be discussing Jailbird.
I had a feeling it was going to be that one. I mean, to be fair, there's only 3 episodes left, so there was a 1 in 3 chance probability that I would guess correctly. But I had been thinking about that episode and that it was still on the wheel, and was thinking, I hope Jailbird pops up soon, because I do like that episode.
It's a good one. It's a salve after this monstrosity. So next time we shall be discussing Jailbird, which Lilliput is not in at all. So it's already a golden episode, and it has the whole gang.
The boys.
The boys. Next time we'll be talking about the boys, and you'll be listening to us talking about the boys. We appreciate that very much, your friends and listeners. And until then, always remember to never let an ant hold your burger, and that crime doesn't sleep. Neither do we.
Have a wonderful evening, not filled with ants.